Hey, I'm Nicholas, and in this video, I will be discussing the NCIS, or Naval Criminal Investigative Service. So without further ado, the NCIS is a federal law enforcement agency that falls under the Department of the Navy, which falls under the Department of Defense. The NCIS is responsible for investigating crimes within, involving, or against the Department of the Navy, or any of its agencies, such as the United States Navy and the United States Marine Corps, and much more, of course. They conduct investigations into a wide range of crimes, including national security threats, such as intelligence threats, terrorism, but also into corruption, such as espionage, fraud, waste, misconduct, and abuse. However, most corruption is not investigated by the NCIS. It's more investigated by the Naval Inspector General, which is a separate agency. However, they conduct operations throughout the United States. However, they only have around 15 field offices. However, those field offices operate actually, like I said, around the United States. So, unlike the FBI, which has like literally a field office in every single state, the NCIS has to travel a lot. However, their training is not nearly as rigorous as I'd say as the FBI, but that's a separate thing. The NCIS is known to have good paying standards, and they are they're known to be one of the best federal law enforcement agencies. Of course, not as good as the FBI or the ATF, but they are one of the best ones. The NCIS, while they primarily investigate crimes within the Department of the Navy, they are also responsible for protecting important Department of the Navy officials, such as, of course, the no other than the NCIS director, and then they also protect the Secretary of the Navy, and then occasionally, however, really not often, but occasionally actually, they protect the Chief of Naval Operations, and also the commandment of the United States Marine Corps. However, they primarily focus on protecting the NCIS's director and the Secretary of the Navy. And speaking of the Secretary of the Navy, they report all their information gathered. They report to the Secretary of the Navy, who reports furthermore to the Secretary of Defense, and who furthermore reports to the President of the United States. They primarily, again, like they investigate crimes within the Department of the Navy, but what they're specifically doing is enforcing the United States Code of Military Justice, or Uniformed Code of Military Justice, which is basically a federal statute that governs or regulates military. It's basically the primary federal military law, or not primary federal military law, primary federal statute regarding military standards and the military. But that's not really what's important. If you were to plan to join the NCIS, they would require you to have a bachelor's degree or higher. It would also require you, of course, to be a United States citizen. And on top of that, they would require you to be physically fit, also have a clean, spot clean record, so no past criminal records or anything. And then you would also need to get a security clearance, Department of Defense security clearance, which basically, if it really matters whether, like, it really matters about the past, like, the security clearance is basically, as long as you're a U.S. citizen and have not committed any crimes, you will probably get a security clearance. That is so it's really the real main important things you have to focus on when trying to join the NCIS is make sure you have a degree, bachelor's or higher. Make sure you're physically fit, and make sure you're, of course, a U.S. citizen. And you also have to have good eyesight. But that is pretty much it. And obviously, you needed past training, which onto training, they conduct their training at the Federal Law Enforcement Training Center located in Glencoe, Georgia. Their training is primarily focused on investigations. However, they also, of course, focus on weapons and physical training, but it's primarily surrounded around firearms and investigations training. So that's the good part about NCIS. The FBI, they have a large focus on fitness, and so if you were to plan on joining the FBI, it would be much harder fitness-wise than the NCIS. The NCIS works with multiple federal law enforcement agencies, including the United States Marine Corps Criminal Investigations Division, also the Federal Bureau of Investigation, and then also the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, Firearms, and Explosives. On top of that, they also work with the Drug Enforcement Administration. And then on top of that, they work with ICE, the Immigration and Customs Enforcement, specifically their Homeland Security Investigations Division. And then also on top of that, they work with multiple other federal law enforcement agencies. I probably shouldn't list them all out because we'll be here for days. But if you guys have any comments, please feel free to ask them in the comment section below. And that's pretty much it. Thank you for watching, and I will see you in the next video.